Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Random Thought Pod. I am your random thought leader, Bridge Lavoie, and this is my random thought co-leader, the girl.
Hey, long time no see. Sounds like you've had a good 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been like 2 weeks.
It went by in a blink, yo.
Yeah. Man, I hope that last episode really recorded.
I really hope it did.
Otherwise, it will not have been 2 weeks. I love ruining the magic.
Episode 1.
Ruining the magic is the best.
Yes. Ask any magician. They love when you do that.
Bippity boppity whoops.
Bippity boppity whoops.
That sounds like something to say in the bedroom.
Oh my gosh. It kind of does.
Man, I didn't want to jump right into something, but we'll jump right into something. I read this quote, and it was like, fish that swim in deep waters, there are fish that swim in the deep waters. Sometimes they come to the shallow, but they can't stay there or they'll die. And I was like, I'm fish.
I'm fish. Oh, okay. That person knows way more about fish than I do.
Yeah, I don't know if this could very well not be true about fish, but it's true about me. Okay, like I like to live in the deep. It's so bad. Like we were like on this group that I'm in, the Bear With community. They asked like, share what you're listening to today. So I shared this song by Ren. I'll add a link to this, but it's like this guy on an acoustic guitar. He's like this Irish rapper. And he's basically writing about his like mental health, and it's like him arguing with his bad self. It's like kind of like higher self and low self talking to each other, and like his lower self is like just telling him like he's terrible, he's a sucky artist, and all this stuff. And it's like, why don't you just unalive yourself or whatever? Yeah. But it's like super dark, right? So I post that, and then the guy that hosts the thing is like, well, I was just like asking what you're listening to for fun. And I'm like, I'm deep water, and that's got to be so annoying to people. Insufferable.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. How are you?
I am good. It's been a minute. Can't even remember what I did in those 2 weeks. But I also like to be in the deep waters.
Yeah.
Is that fish just maybe an introvert? I don't know if we do Myers-Briggs on fish, but that might be like, how the introvert has to just hide for a little bit after it's been around other fish.
Everything I know about
fish.
That
shallow fish are more social.
Everything I know about fish, I learned from like Finding Nemo. So
I surprisingly didn't like that movie when it first came out.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
I was a teen, so maybe it was not for teens.
You were like too cool for it? I
really enjoyed it. I liked it.
Yeah.
I came around. I changed my mind on that.
You changed your mind? People change their minds.
People, only about Pixar films.
Only about Pixar films.
That's right.
Yeah. Even though like Disney's evil. And
the dark side of Disney. Remember when I said that 14 days ago?
I love it. All right. Hey, I was thinking, okay, so when you talk about like, I see a lot of people talking about like how people aren't where they should be. It's like, hey, my parents aren't being accepting of me as a whatever you are. And like we're expecting people to progress all the time. And I was kind of thinking about like even for like where I am versus where I used to be. Like I was thinking about like just like how terrible I was. And I was just like, I used to be a piece of shit. I'm trying not to be now, but
now I'm just a piece of crap.
Yeah. That's the title. I used to be a piece of shit, but now I'm just a piece of crap. We'll put like a little, like one of those little asterisks in the I, so that it's not swearing in the title. You don't
get too much in trouble.
You ever find that funny too? Like how like when we were younger, how like it used to be like you can swear in like metal you can swear in like rock songs, but
Yeah.
nobody ever swore in pop songs. Like, why would you want to
Never.
swear in a pop song? Like, pop
No,
songs
that's
aren't
not what
angry.
that's for.
And now pop songs, they swear all the time.
Not all the time. And the most surprising, and not to be too topical, but like the past two records that Taylor Swift has put out, she curses a lot.
Yeah.
And they're in like these beautiful again, I have synesthesia, so these songs look like landscapes to me. Like these are these beautiful, melodic, just lyrically gorgeous songs, and then she just will curse about it in the middle of it. And it's just, okay, that ups the pain factor, but it is surprising to hear like this beautiful ballad, and she just likes to throw it in there.
And she's just like, but,
also,
bum.
Yeah, she's just yelling bum all the time. For some reason, I'm just refusing to actually curse this episode. I don't know why. But, she just loves to throw it out there.
She likes to talk about bum.
Yeah, but it's in pop music, and it was surprising.
I still don't totally get the Taylor Swift, but that's okay.
That's okay. She doesn't have to be for you.
I may be too old.
Poor soul, your loss. I can't believe it. No, that's all right.
But anyways, yeah, I was thinking in terms of like, so it's been a long journey to get to where I am, and I don't know if I have the bandwidth to take someone else on the same journey.
Oh, okay.
But like, maybe I don't have to. Like, it was funny. I think it was also, I watch a lot of TikTok. It was also on TikTok where someone was talking about enlightenment. And it's like, okay, so you believe you reached enlightenment, and you're like, all right, so how do I enlighten others? And they're like, if you had a maths class, I think they were English, you have a maths class. Yeah. I don't know why they say maths.
I don't know.
English.
I only ever learned one math.
Yeah, all the maths.
All the maths. Can't do it.
So anyways, yeah, if you have a maths class, the only people you teach are your students, and people did not sign up for your maths class.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's true. Nobody signed up for my course, the Random Thought.
It was very expensive.
Except for the people on the podcast that listen to the podcast.
Our fan.
And it was free.
Yeah.
And it was free, and I'm going to make it worth their every penny that they didn't pay to listen to this.
That's perfect. Well, I totally lost any thought that I had. You can just rip this part right out.
Just rip it right out.
I have no idea at all what I was about to say.
Yeah. So this is going to be blatantly obvious to people that I never edit anything because I'm going to leave.
You're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Hey, you ever heard that term mock accident and just think that it's like, ha ha, your arm got cut off.
What's a mock accident?
Oh, is that? Maybe it's a Canadian term.
Maybe.
So like for like emergency preparedness, they would do like a simulation.
Okay.
But they would call it a mock accident.
Okay. So, I've heard it other
we're going to have to use the jaws of life. Oh, I'm so hurt.
I feel like for something like that, we would call it just like, oh, they're doing a practice run on blah, blah, blah. Like, if you go to like the water park every now and then they have that dressed in a bathing suit rubber child that they'll just toss in a pool without warning and just wait for one of the lifeguards to spot it and save it. It's terrifying. But they feel like they just call that a practice or a trial run or something. I don't know that we would mock people.
They should have like in
America.
The rubber baby should have like a rubber parent that's just like, somebody save my baby. So that'd be a good mock accident.
They call him Tommy, I think. And next time I see him, that's all I'm going to think is like that scene from The Office when Dwight Schrute has like that fake skin on his face. Yeah. Just, my boy is in the lazy river. Like the gentlest ride there is. But yeah. Sorry, Tommy.
It's just wonderful. Hey, you know when they had like those Coke bottles that had names on them?
Yes.
I thought that was the dumbest thing ever. Because I'm just like, what are the odds that there's a Bridge or a John, since I have two names? Yeah. But even like, okay, so I go there and go to buy a bottle and I'm like, oh, There's not one that says John. I guess I won't buy
None
one.
of these are mine.
What's like? Why? Why would like? I don't understand. Like they should have made it so that you could put your name on it. Maybe I don't know.
I don't know. They should have.
It's just a marketing thing that I didn't understand, and I'm like, and I remember saying this is dumb.
Yeah.
And then somebody saying no, it makes sense, and I'm like, okay, maybe this is one of those like neurotypical things where it's like I'm just too weird.
I feel like I would be like, well, my name's not Natalie, but I'm going to drink Natalie's soda. I probably would like tag somebody and be like, hey, look. Or at that time, I wasn't tagging anybody. I'd probably text somebody like, I got your soda. Ha, bitch. Like,
very, very, very dad jokey.
Yeah,
it reminds me of the whole like, I'm hungry. Hi, hungry. I'm dad. I saw someone on X being like, hi, horny. I'm dad. And I'm like,
no, that was wrong. Went too far.
Yeah, it was too far. So, I don't know if you've heard of Ashniko. She's like, I want to say pop star, but like it's very like intense music sometimes.
Okay.
I'm trying not to cough.
I'm sorry for making a face at your cough. That was ableist of me.
It's very like.
It was a good sound effect, actually.
I'm pretty sure it's COVID. I didn't test, but it's like, what does it matter? We're just gonna.
At this point,
it's a disease.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Thanks to the convoy in Canada, it doesn't exist anymore. That's the whole thing. Anyways, but now the convoy is save the children. We're gonna save the children by closeting them.
Oh my god!
Good job. Well, good job, everyone. All right. Anyway, so Ashniko. Who's white, by the way? I want her to be not white, but she's white.
My brain already pictured the wrong person.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think she is, anyways. At least in my mind, passing is white. I don't know. This is going well. Just so you know, this is going well.
One person hits the unsubscribe button. I'm done.
It's Ashniko. She's like, no, I'm not listening to this anymore. Anyways, she said something really cool. She was like standing in front of her audience and she said, no one enters my body without my permission. And then she pointed to her head and says, no one enters my head without my permission.
Okay.
I was like, that is profound.
I like this. All right. Mm-hmm. That's, the whole living in your head rent free, but, better.
Yeah. Right. I always charge rent for the people that live in my head. You have to.
So many rooms.
Also, you owe me $5.
I'll Venmo you.
I was thinking about you earlier today when I was like, hey, are we doing this today?
On every app you could.
Turns out we are doing this today.
I was just living my best life out there, not opening any apps and then sitting in the little meeting room and being like, maybe I should see if he messaged me anything.
I was like 11:45 or something like that. I'm like, well, I'm just going to lay down.
You were so you did the right thing with enough time. And then I just ignored everything. We're just going to have to bite the bullet and internationally text rates will apply.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Oh my God.
You just have to give me your cell phone number and then I'll just text you next time.
All right, guys. It is 917. No. Right here.
People who give their cell phone numbers. Like I have a professor in the online course I'm taking where he's like, I'll give my cell phone number. I'm like, why are you giving your cell phone number to people? Like some people just give their cell phone number to people. And I'm like, I don't want people like
my husband does that. He had a work phone with a work line for a long time and never gave that number out. Never, not once. So everybody just calls his actual phone, like the phone that I call, which I find like, hey, that's the phone I call. No, this is my house. Like, don't do it. But yeah, he gives it to everybody.
What kind of lozenges do you like?
The ones that are actually candy. Like if
like Halls?
Yeah.
Or Vic?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, Halls, I think.
Yeah, like like any of those citrusy blends. If they're those are
mine.
Legit.
Can you see it?
Yeah. You got to do the thing where you like hold your hand so it focuses. Those are legit. No,
that's Fisherman's Friends for all you audio only people, which is most of you people.
Yeah.
I don't understand video people. Like the whole like I watch my podcast on YouTube. I put it on YouTube. But like, hey, if
Because
you're
why
watching
not?
this on YouTube, I don't
Why?
get you.
Tell us why. Leave a comment.
Like maybe you need to see the facial expressions. And
I
so
feel like I would
maybe
one
be
time click over just to be like, what do these people look like? Nah, I don't like
Did we?
that. Let's move along.
Did we talk about this before where it was like Shakespearean actors and
No.
then acting and like how it's changed the way that we try to read people? Okay. All right.
So. Tell me.
Let's do this.
Okay.
So like Shakespearean actors, like back in Shakespeare's day, Shakespeare would always have like people do like kind of like a monologue as an expository of how they're feeling. And then acting morphed into just people being expressive with their faces. And so when we watch TV, we're like, oh, that person's sad. And we can tell, right?
Yeah.
So then we did talk about this. We totally did. So we're going to revisit it. It's okay.
Sorry for giving
I think
you
so because you talked about
0%
RBF.
of my attention. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, because we talked about RBF.
All right.
Sorry, listener. Right. We're doing this again. It's okay.
Recap.
I've got to finish this
It's
off now.
been so many weeks.
But anyways, yeah. So we're used to actors being very expressive with their faces, and then we assume that in real life we can read people's faces, which we can't.
Okay.
And so like it's so we always think, oh, you could tell people are lying if they like pull on their ear or whatever.
It's a tell. Yeah.
I could tell she has a crush on me because she pulled her hair over her ear. Yeah.
Everybody's a body language expert.
Yeah. And we're not. We just watched a lot of TV and we think that people on TV are real people, and they're not. They're all AI generated, all of them.
Every single one.
It's like birds not being real. It's like all the people on TV, they're not real.
Oh, you still believe in birds? Okay.
They're just robots. Oh, you still believe in birds?
No.
That guy was like on Fox News, eh?
The bird guy?
The bird guy was on Fox News, and they were like, you don't really believe this. And he's like, I do. Like,
I mean, I saw a dead bird this morning, or maybe his battery just died. It could be one or the other. Maybe they're solar powered, like, and that's how they keep going. I mean, a cat was kind of munching on this one, gross, but I don't think the cat was eating a robot.
Maybe cats aren't real too. I don't know.
Oh my god, this goes all the way to the top. This is stressful.
Maybe we're not real. Like,
I'm ready for that to be true. 100%. I join groups with crazies just to watch them be like, I finally saw it. I saw the grid lines in the road for the simulation that we're in. And I'm like, ooh, that's special. That's a special kind of scary.
I so badly want to go back to conspiracy theories being fun again.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, there was a period where I was like, oh, conspiracy theories are so funny. And then when, like, COVID happened and people started having all these, like, dangerous conspiracy theories, I was like, well, this isn't fun anymore.
No.
And then the whole, like, teachers grooming students thing, too. It's just like...
it's way less fun.
Dumb. Okay. So one of my favorite guys in the Bible is the guy who doesn't like the prophet because he always says bad stuff. It's like, oh, no, not that prophet. He always says bad stuff about me.
Yes, that rings a bell. Yes, absolutely. He's telling it like it is.
Yeah. I just thought that was the funniest thing.
Isn't he like,
it's
yes,
like,
bring me the prophet, but not that one?
I mean, it's similar to what I said 2 weeks ago, assuming that episode actually airs.
There's no way to know.
Where, you know, like, it's like, so it's like the guy who doesn't like the prophet because he says bad stuff. Yeah, that's bias. That's like the poor thinking people. I don't know where I was going with that. All right, so you said you watch NCIS.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. Like, okay, am I right about this? The whole show is about crimes that happen in the Navy or involving Navy people.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so they have like NCIS Los Angeles, NCIS New York. There's a third one.
There's NCIS.
I'm like, how many crimes do we have that involve the Navy?
There is Los Angeles. There was New Orleans. Now there's also Hawaii. I hate that I know this much. There's also going to be Sydney, I believe.
Sydney.
Sydney, mate. It is always the person you expect it to be based on the character and, you know, who's never been in the show before, and they all open exactly the same. They all have absolutely slamming theme songs. Like, no better dance music than an NCIS theme song. And yeah, it's just always like, oh, that guy that you thought was creepy is that guy.
It just puts me off because it's all about the Navy. I'm like, that's such a dumb premise.
Why do you hate the water?
Oh, I used to like when we were like, I did the whole thing like all waters lead to the ocean. So I would say to my kids, I'm like, so we're on a lake right now. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, all water leads to the ocean. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, technically, we're on international waters right now.
Okay. But yeah, it's all Navy involved, and I think that's the only reason that these crimes are solved in an expedient fashion, because
it all happens on the water.
You know, because they're all involved with, like, they're already linked up to military, and they like want to get on the case and solve it. If it was just a regular person, they'd be like, all right, get in line, we'll figure out who killed you when we can. Oh
yeah, especially in Canada here.
Yeah.
Like our court system, it's all backed up, I think, because of COVID.
Oh, that makes sense.
But it's hard to,
so many crimes.
Put the people in jail.
Gotta get them in jail.
It's very different here too, because like our justice system is like more so like rehabilitation based, not like retributive.
I think it's that one.
That. It's not that. It's this.
It's this. Okay.
And yeah, and so I mean, like they'll be like, "You're sentenced to 200 years." This happens in the States. I'm like, I don't understand you guys. Like, but then it's like,
yeah,
in Canada, it's like, "Oh, you murdered that person. Okay, you get 7 years." It's like that's nothing. But then I think about it, 7 years, actually, like that is a pretty long time to be in jail.
Yeah. It's a long time.
I don't know, like, honestly, I'm like, I don't know how you repay anybody for anything. And it's like when we were talking about, like, the whole Palestine thing, and, like, you know, it's like, okay, so they murdered these children. Okay, how are we going to exact our revenge? It's like, are you going to murder the same age children, and then we're good? Like, it's done? Yeah. Like, it's like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, none of the, like, retribution, like where we try to exact revenge on people, none of it is ever like measured the same amount. And even if it is measured the same amount, it's like, okay, so you got misery. Yeah. Now you're going to give them misery. And now the world's a better place.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain stuff, like let's go, like, if you're a serial killer and you're going to do this forever because you like it, you should be in a place where the world is safe from you.
Absolutely.
But then there's also some stuff that it's like, oh, you're just going to live there and there's no chance of you being rejoining society. That's definitely not the goal. The goal is not to be rehabilitated, learn a lesson, and come back. It is punishment or banishment, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And like Paul Bernardo is like a notorious like serial rapist and murderer. And it was teenage girls, and him and his wife would do these things. And so he's in prison in Canada for life. And he got moved to like a like medium security prison, and there were all these people losing their shit over it. And I was like, okay, well, is he getting out?
Yeah.
Like, if he's not getting out, I don't care how he's treated. Like, you can treat him nicely. I don't care. I just don't want him to get out. Like, that's my thought anyway. Because I'm like, so like, what's high security is like, and this was like, this guy was like convicted in the 90s. Okay. So he's been in there for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm just kind of like, well, do I care how he's treated? I just want to make sure he doesn't get out.
Yeah.
Does he need to be in solitary confinement all the time? Like, it's like, we're trying to exact, like, you're not going to exact revenge. It's like what, like Shane Claiborne says. It's like, okay, so we murder people because they murdered someone and we're exacting revenge on them, right? But it's like we don't do that with like sex crimes people. Like, how are you going to exact the same thing, right? Like, it's
Right.
not going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't. I mean, but
Yeah.
But you know, there's just no way to do the exact same thing to someone. And so it's like, in the end, it's like, so what are we trying to do? We're trying to protect society. So how do we protect society?
I mean, do we go like, okay, we're going to give you a certain, everybody gets, you're going to start with this amount of time and we're going to check on you. And when you're ready to leave time out, I mean, that's what we do with toddlers. Is it, do we go like, okay, I think you're actually, or no, you need more time. You're not going to be a good human. I don't know.
I don't know how any of this works, but it just funny how many people pretend they do know how all this works.
Well, I watched a lot of NCIS, so I do think I get how that legal system works.
Yeah, but like under the water.
Only underwater crimes. Actually, they're usually in alleyways, but it's usually after a rain. There's puddles.
Yeah, that's right. And technically, that's like international water. So
it's all international water.
So really, you can do whatever.
At any point.
There's no laws on international. None. All right. Hey, I was thinking it'd be funny for a guy to say, I was a lawyer. I used to loy.
I see the list and yet am always shocked by what the delivery is actually going to be. I was like, how is he going to say that? And it was loy. Okay. Because you were a lawyer. Why aren't you a lawyer? Lawer would be without the Y, right? Why don't you just law? Why do you have to
say
what
lawyer
is the Y
in
for?
America?
What do you say?
Lawyer.
Yeah, lawyer. With the oi in it.
Yeah,
or
we speak
attorney.
The same language.
Yeah. But
attorney.
But for someone to loy, why don't you just law? Why is the Y in there? Does it have a function?
I don't think anyone says loy. I just thought it'd be funny to say loy.
I know, but now I'm trying to riff, bro. But no,
we should loy.
We should loy.
They should loy.
I didn't go to loy school, but you should just law.
You know I loy more than any of you, but I would rather you be full of the Holy Spirit.
Oh, that's very
I love
holy.
that I have genres of tweet.
You have genres of tweet.
Yeah, that's one of my genres of tweet.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll riff on that.
You do.
Hey, I watched the movie 1984, kind of, sort of. I wasn't totally paying attention. It was kind of boring.
Okay.
But
were you like, I lived through 84, so whatever?
Yeah.
That's not how it was.
I don't know. I was a kid. I don't know. It could have been. I don't know. But I was just thinking about like 1984, and it's like Big Brother. And then I was thinking, what about like regular size brother?
What if somebody was like, I don't want little brother watching everything I do,
Little brother.
Yeah, but like a regular, a medium-sized brother, just keeping an eye on things.
There was a lot more nudity in that movie than I thought there would be. I hate that. Like,
I wouldn't expect any.
I like fly every week, right? Mm-hmm. And I also take like a bus, right? So it's like quite a bit of transit time. And so if I'm going to watch something, I'm like, well, I don't know if I should watch something with nudity in it. It's just kind of awkward to be like,
sure.
So I don't purposely watch stuff with like sex and nudity in it, but yeah.
No, that's a fair. I was covering a desk at an office job a couple weeks ago, and no one can see my laptop, but I was highly aware anytime anybody went by, like as I was waiting for the phone to ring, what people were saying, breathy sounds, like trying to be like, nobody's paying attention to me, but I don't want them to be like, what is this? And me to be like, it is one scene in a 2.5-hour movie. Leave me alone. I am not in public. Like, I was very hyper aware of this, so I get you. Absolutely.
All right. It was kind of interesting. I think we talked about this before, about like how Facebook no longer has news in Canada.
Yes, which still blows my mind.
And I was like hearing about like how like Facebook has changed the news industry, and it's like journalists cater to Facebook has been kind of how the game has shifted. I don't know how it's going in Canada now because it's been quite some time now that
Yeah.
our journalists haven't been on Facebook. But it was like this idea that journalists cater to Facebook, like teachers teaching to the test. And
Okay.
and I know for me, like when I was a teacher, it was like you teach to the curriculum.
Right.
And you shouldn't be teaching to the test, even if it is a standardized test. Like it's not. You want these kids to actually learn. You don't want them to just be able to do good on the test, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was thinking about like, does that hurt journalism for it to be like catering to Facebook?
Like to write in a way that it is engageable or a way that it's allowed on Facebook?
I guess I think it would be engageable on Facebook. Like it'll engage the algorithms.
Okay. I mean, does that mean they have to like leave things out? Or
I think it would just be the way they headline it, which is kind of an interesting thing that's happening with X, where you're not allowed headlines anymore on your news articles.
That has been throwing me off. I didn't realize that was happening, and I just thought I was clicking a bunch of pictures, and then all of a sudden they were like actual news stories. Just to limit people having like engaging about the headline without actually knowing what it's about. Like, I guess that makes sense, but the clicks have to be much lower because everything just looks like pictures.
Yeah, well, part of it too, like I feel like it's kind of aesthetically pleasing, like it's more minimalistic.
That's true.
So I don't mind that. And I've starting to learn to click. I think I'm adjusting to it now, learning to click on those articles sometimes. Actually, I'm probably more likely to click on it now because before with headlines, I'd be like, I'd see a headline, I'd be like, oh yeah, so that guy said something about the Palestinian.
Somebody probably didn't say the thing that they think that they said something else. And it used to, I don't know if it still does, but like when you would repost it or retweet it, it would be like, you haven't read the article. Do you want to read it first? Like a mom. But
yeah,
I guess it leads to less misinformation to not have a juicy headline appear, but then I think it's going to lead to less people reading altogether.
I have no idea. I have no idea what that guy's doing, and I don't think he has any idea what he's doing.
He doesn't know.
Yeah.
No clue.
But I'm like just kind of stuck because this is my biggest audience, so I'm going to stay on X. So.
Yeah.
I think I might have done this on the ADD Masterminds podcast. It was a bit.
Okay.
But and it's really good.
Okay.
But I was thinking like instead of saying sorry when you do something bad, just say pranked.
Again, I see the list. I see that the list says pranked. I have no idea how that is going to come together with what is coming out of your brain. So just not, I'm sorry, just pranked.
Yeah. Yeah. So for example,
I could not hate you more for that.
So for example, like I had to drive my kid out to like this party that was out in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And there were, I think, some issues with Google Maps or whatever. So it took me extra long to get there. And when my wife went to pick him up, I didn't mention that Google Maps isn't quite right. And so they ended up like, instead of being back at like 11, they didn't get back until 2 a.m.
Oh my God. No, that's too much. Too late. No.
And so.
No, that's awful. So you pranked her.
I pranked her.
That's terrible. Awful. Yesterday at work, I was gifted cupcakes, which a wonderful day at work. And one of my coworkers knocked them over, like in the package, but knocked them over. So they were just a mess. Nothing. And she just went, oh, that's annoying. They'll still be fine. And moved along with her day and left because her shift was over. And I was just like, I know they're not $100 cupcakes that I paid for, but you gotta feel bad. But if she had yelled pranked, maybe it would have been better. I would have at least chuckled. If she had like killed half a dozen cupcakes and went, oh, pranked, see you tomorrow, it might have been different.
We did not get home until 2 a.m. pranked. It's great.
Oh,
My family loves me.
Someone's got to. It's only because you leave their thoughts. Yeah.
That book that I put in the show notes last episode.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put in the show notes again this episode.
Bibbidi bobbidi.
Bibbidi bobbidi.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about like how moths are like supposed to go to the moon. They're supposed to live on the moon. I don't even know why they go toward the moon.
I've never seen this happen.
But that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to go toward the moon.
They're not little astronauts. I don't know why.
I really should have researched this.
They're supposed to. It's their destiny to go to the moon.
They put on these little like space helmets.
That's why they have the little antennas. Oh my god.
But anyways.
They must all be so sad because A, they're not beautiful like butterflies, and B, they never can make it to the moon.
Well, sadly, they never make it to the moon because like we created, an environment where we have artificial light. And so they think they're going to the moon, but they actually go to our like street lights.
That is so sad.
And so they'll never make it home to the moon.
Home implies they came from there, which is interesting. Yeah. So we've just confused them with our artificial lights. If we had never come up with artificial lamps, these little critters would be moon-bound.
Yes.
Love how confidently you said that. Okay. All right. This is a fact. This is canon at this point. Poor things. Okay.
But anyways, yeah. So it's like we developed this technology and then nature doesn't evolve to it. But we've done the same thing with ourselves by the way we process information because technologies move so fast that we're not going to make it to the moon either.
Oh, this is so sad.
Except we did.
Did we? I don't know. Plenty of people don't think we did.
God, that did not go the way I planned.
What did you want me to say?
I don't know.
What was my role? I was ready.
I honestly didn't even think about like why the moths were moving towards the moon until I started doing the podcast, and I'm like, oh God, how am I going to explain this?
That's very sad. Poor creatures of the night that they are. I mean, you and I won't make it to the moon, but maybe some humans did. Maybe. If you believe in birds.
If you believe in science.
I believe in science, people. Okay.
I thought this was like really beautiful that I got from somewhere sometime.
Yeah.
One day in the past. There's something profoundly unorthodox and unfamiliar that allowed Jesus to have compassion on the very people who were responsible for crucifying him.
Yeah.
I have no idea where that thought came from. But it is really interesting. Like, it's hard to fathom Jesus having compassion for the very same people that crucified him. And maybe that's a testament to us all. I honestly don't get super angry at people over how they treat me. I'm more so how they treat other people.
Right.
And then I have the right to hate them because they treated someone else bad.
Sure. I think because you can kind of modulate is not the right word, but when it's between the two of you, you can put more context and just put more compassion on your own side. But when you see someone externally from you being treated poorly, all you have is the information that they are being treated poorly. And all it does is reflect on that one person. And then it's just well, no, you must be a real bad person. You're bad at being a human.
Well, I think also it's just kind of I think when you grow up a certain way and you kind of habitually, lived with abuse, right?
Right.
You live with some sort of abuse. You're I can be abused. That's okay. but don't abuse my children
Right.
or someone else that I love.
That's
right?
common. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really interesting too, how our upbringing, like you can almost get like Stockholm syndrome where you're just like, okay, well, my parents did this to me and it was horrible, but I got through it, made me who I am now. And then you kind of unconsciously do the same thing to your kids. Like I see patterns of that for people. And it's like almost like we need to somehow decide that the bad things that happen to us are not okay.
Yeah.
So that we make sure that that doesn't get perpetuated in the next generation.
Yeah. Oof. Oof.
Yeah. There's work to be done. I feel like it's more complicated than just like, oh, okay, well, I can have compassion for people that hurt me. But it's like, as soon as it's like, well, I can have compassion for people that hurt people I care about, I'm like, that feels like I'm letting them hurt people.
Oh yeah. I think I don't want to call it ego, but I feel like there's a decent amount of like, well, if I don't stop this, what if that behavior continues? Or if I show compassion, is that allowing it to continue? And we should want bad behaviors and harmful behaviors to stop. But how much is it that we're really called, if we're going to go like religiously, we're called to love people, but that's both of those people involved. And how do we show each of them love and hopefully protection as well?
So you're saying like it's like ego to think that if you treat them poorly, then they'll stop?
Like the perpetrator, that if we go like, no, I'm canceling that one. I think to feel like I have to, because that will have some kind of bearing on it. It seems a little bit ego. I mean, there's plenty of that I've been able to say, you know what, for me, I don't want to, I don't know. I don't want to be associated, or I don't want to support that person because of my character. But to be like, no, I'm going to withdraw my support or my friendship or my whatever to teach that person a lesson. I don't know that that's always our job. Or maybe it is.
I'm going to have to think about that. Like that.
Okay.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Because you're called to love both. Continue.
Yeah. Yeah. And every time I hear that, I'm like, okay, but is loving both like going to enable the terrible person?
Right.
Right?
Well, and then what does love mean to them? Do we go tough love? Do we go like, maybe you do have to, depending on the relationship, go like, I'm sorry, you're hurting people and I can't let you do that. And so I've got to do what I have to do. And, kind of tell you that you really got to stop. I can't force you, or is it ego?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, what's kind of interesting too, like with like internal family systems and the little bit of learning I've done on that, is like, I've always talked about like, oh, I need to kill my ego. And they're like, no, you need to sit down with your ego and say, look, like, hey, you did what you had to do to protect that child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, so how do we make peace with our ego? Because maybe sometimes our ego is doing something that needs to be done. Right. Yeah. So.
No, that's true.
Just like fully integrating all of you instead of like denying a part of yourself and saying like that part of me, shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And it's all, I should learn more about that stuff. I have like the guy that's my supervisor at work likes to say, not going to borrow trouble.
Okay.
And I think that's such a beautiful way of looking at things, because you could be borrowing trouble from the future. You could be borrowing trouble from someone else.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to include that as a mantra.
No, I like that. Just don't, there's some proverbs around that of like, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's got its own worries. But yeah, just that problem's not mine. I don't got to hold on to it. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that.
Yeah. And even like the future you problems, aren't ones that you need to worry about either. Right. So
that's true.
Like you like the scripture said. Yeah. I'm reading this book, and it's like how to save democracy from its Christian enemies.
Ooh.
I think that's what it's titled. I'll
Okay.
put the link in the show notes. Bippity boppity show notes. And one of the things he talks about is like government in the Old Testament, and how in the Old Testament there were kings, but there were also prophets that would put those kings in their place. And I think what's interesting too is like scripturally, it wasn't God's ideal to have kings to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the thing to remember, because a lot of time we want to have kings. Like we're just like, oh, we need that CEO for our church.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or pastor, but CEO. And it's just like emulating that corporate structure. And it's like, but it's like, we don't have the prophets. Like, and I think like with any of these structures, we don't have the prophets. The prophets that we do have are the ones that are like telling us what we want to hear. It's like, yeah, God hates those people too. It's like, okay, yeah, let's kill them. Right. And it's like, the reality is like, I feel like a lot of the voices that are prophetic are ones that are outside of the church that are like saying, hey, like you guys shouldn't be doing that. Like this is messed up. But yeah, I just never thought of it in those terms, that it's like the kings always had the prophets keeping them accountable, and we kind of have a vacuum in a lot of ways.
What then was really the structure for the nation of like his people in Israel? Like what did God intend? Like, was everybody just minding their business, but going, but being religious, and the prophets were speaking, but there wasn't supposed to be a king, or there were several judges? Like, there was not supposed to be one person at the top. Like, I want to look into what God wanted for a government structure.
Yeah, it's a good question, because I'm like, what's the difference between judges and a king?
Right.
And it seems like the judges was a much more humble position, and they weren't going to be the ones that are like, I want lots of gold and I want to send your sons to war, right? Because that was kind of the warning that came from the prophet, where the prophet's like, you don't want kings. They're going to send your sons to war, and they're going to accumulate like way too much gold. They're going to want bling. Mm-hmm. And then the people are like, yeah, I don't care. We still want it. Right. And it's just kind of in the nature of the people to want what's not best. That's why, like, it's just hard to be like a huge fan of democracy.
Yeah.
I know, like so much of this is just kind of like, well, the people will decide. And I'm like, yeah, the people are stupid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so we need to educate the people. Mm-hmm. And then the people are like, yeah, we don't trust your education system. And so I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know how to solve the world's problems. I read a book on it, and I don't think they're solved still. In fact, that book that was like How to Solve Our Problems, or whatever it was called, it had some elements that were quite transphobic, and that bothered me.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, hey, it's cool that you're like trying to be a higher rung thinker, and you're saying, like, but it's like, I think it's again that kind of mentality where it's like debating a person, and the thing that you're debating actually affects them personally, and how you're like, hey, I'm being objective, but for them it's like cutting them to the heart for you to say like, hey, right? And so like, I was just kind of like, yeah, I don't like how biased this guy's being on this topic, because this issue really affects me.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that like somehow we need to incorporate that. And I think, actually what hit me, there was somebody who said like, oh, we're talking about like trans women in sports. And they're like, why have high school sports to begin with? Let's just not have high school sports.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, that's an interesting perspective. So I retweeted it. And then someone replied and said, hey, high school sports was the only thing that was a refuge for me when I was being abused. And then I was like, okay, I should not have retweeted that.
That's tough. Yeah.
And so I replied to him and said, oh, I'm glad that was that for you, right? Or whatever. But then the person that had posted that just kept going back and forth with him, and just kind of saying, look, well, couldn't something else other than high school sports have helped you? Like, you shouldn't have been abused to begin with. And I'm just like, okay, like, why are you having this conversation? Like, you're trying to defend your point.
I feel like that's the crux of trying to have a political conversation, whether it is on the internet or elsewhere. One of them was like, well, in the ideal situation, that shouldn't have happened anyway, right? Or like something else could have done it, right? And then anybody who's a little bit more grounded on this particular planet is like, okay, I'm going to deal with what's actually true and happened. And that's just the worst. When you're trying to come up with an actual solution or actual change or something tangible. And I feel like it tends to be the right side of the spectrum tends to go like, well, if we all just did this anyway, like we're supposed to, this wouldn't even be a problem. It's like, okay, but we did and we are and we're all whatever, and we don't have a time machine. So let's work with the actual world that we're in. But just it tends to happen a lot. Like, well, it could have been something else. Well, it wasn't. So
yeah, it's wasting that energy trying to do all these because I mean, like the company I work for. So I'm a contractor working for a corporation,
right?
And the corporation gave us like these wonderful computers to work with, and now they're like, we're gonna do bring your own device now, and it's like, okay. And I'm like, this is gonna complicate things. I don't know how I connect to the network and all this stuff, and I'm like, that sucks. And I'm like, and they're saying like it's for security reasons. I'm like, okay. I don't understand why. But then people are like, well, that's dumb. Well, like, why are we, that doesn't even make sense. And I'm like, look, this is like a corporation. They're not going to explain it to you. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares why?
Yeah.
Let's just adjust to it. And, when I was talking to one of my kids about school too, and it's just like, oh, they expect, us to have this kind of supply for this kind of, and it's just like, well, that's dumb. Why do they do that? And they're like, well, I don't really know. And then I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, okay, you know what? It doesn't matter. Either way, you need that supply.
Need to have it, so
right?
Here you go. Yep.
And so there's just a lot of things like that where it's just kind of like, well, why was it sports? It's like, well, it just was. So like, shut up.
Yeah.
Like, can we just be done? And especially when you're talking about like, as soon as somebody said I was abused, I'm like, okay, we don't need to talk about this theoretically.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Actually, there was a situation too where we were talking about like the criminal justice system, and like Pierre Poilievre, he's running for the Conservative Party, and he was talking about this guy who was a violent offender, was declared like criminally not responsible, was released, and then he went out and hurt a bunch of people.
Yes, right.
And he's just kind of like, and so I'm like, okay, so you say this isn't going to happen under your watch. So what do you do? Like, people who are not criminally responsible are still going to be jailed? And somebody replied, he should be executed. And I was like, all right. And I'm like, that's very extreme. And he's like, look, he's like, my friend was on that bus when there was a man who was supposedly out of his mind, and he beheaded my friend. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm seeing this is a situation that affects you personally. I'm not going to debate this any further.
That's fair.
And I left the conversation.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, why would I debate that with him?
Yeah.
Like, there's just no point.
There's no point. Neither of they're not going to change their mind at all. And
no.
If it's true that they're that close to the situation, they get to say that. I mean, as long as they're not the one flipping the switch, they're not making the decision, we do get to say what we want about it. There was a lot of conversation around the Danny Masterson thing, which was ridiculous. Even after conviction and sentencing and everything. And I saw people like, oh, we shouldn't be judging him like this. We shouldn't be talking about, and I was like, we're literally not even in the room. Like, little random people making comments is not going to affect his life. Actually, that's already been done. We do get to talk about it, or that, we don't know what happened. We shouldn't. Okay. But I mean, we weren't there, but we're not making these decisions. We're not judge. We're not jury. We're not lawyers. We're not even in the rooms, like, whispering to each other. So we do get to say some things, and it's not actually that harmful. But
to me, like, the Danny Masterson situation is more so about like, what's the broader conversation, right? Like, how do we make sure stuff like this doesn't happen? Like, how do we support victims in this situation? And like it, I mean, what was really interesting too is like the Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher, where it's like, hey, this guy's our friend,
Yeah.
and he's going to be away from his daughter, and it's like, yeah, the daughter has lost a father,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that's hard for you guys personally to watch that, but it doesn't negate what he did, right? And it's like, and you guys are like supporting, you know, people, victims of sex trafficking, and you've just totally thrown all that in the trash by supporting this guy.
The idea that don't do that, that punishment's going to punish him is like, yes, that is correct. Like it's meant that, I mean, whether that's the correct method for prison systems or not, he's being in there to be punished, and it shouldn't be easy if that's the way that they're going for that.
Yeah, well, it's just just people's bias showing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and when you're too close to the situation, it's like you can't. It's not possible for you to think logically. Like it's just you know this person, right? Yeah. And like I don't understand. I don't know what a good sentence is for anything, honestly. I'm like, I don't know. Because like to me, like a year in prison is ridiculous. Like when I actually think about it, like when you hear like, oh, it's 1 year in prison, that's nothing. That's just a slap in the wrist. It's like, imagine a year away from your family.
That. Yeah, that's a long time.
A year away from getting better at your job, like all of those things.
Yeah.
It's like a year is a long time.
Right.
So like 25 years, it's like, holy, that's a lot of years.
I mean, the amount of life that he'll miss, the age he will be when he comes out, you know, missed work for him, you know, things like that. Yeah. It is significant. But then does it, which is why I'm like, should there be checkups, that it's some kind of, you know, there's the good behavior thing, but if it's rehabilitation versus just, we're going to lock you away and teach you a lesson, how do we gauge that? How do we teach that? Like, is that actually a mechanism of the prison system, or is it just we're punishing you and protecting them out there? I don't know enough.
I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to talk to someone about that, knows something about it.
If anyone out there knows anything at all, we would like to know more than nothing.
Well, this was wonderful.
This really was. It's been too long, friend.
Yes.
It's good to catch up.
We'll do it again.
Okay.
Whenever it's in the calendar.
Someday.
Someday.
Someday out there.
All right.
All right.
Take it easy, all you people. Unless you have to work, then don't take it easy and work hard.
Be very good
capitalism
humans.
needs you.
Yes. Desperately.